You don't need more prayer. You don't need another sermon. You don't need another "I'm starting tomorrow." You don't need another screenshot of a verse you'll forget in 6 hours. You don't need more motivation, more hype, more emotional moments that make you cry and then leave you the same. You need one hard decision, and the reason that sentence makes your chest tighten is because deep down, you already know what decision I'm talking about. Because your life isn't stuck because God is silent. Your life is stuck because you keep living in the space between knowing and choosing. You keep collecting spiritual information while avoiding spiritual confrontation. You keep asking God to change things while refusing to change the one thing He keeps bringing up. So your prayers feel heavy, your progress feels slow, your peace feels temporary, your discipline feels impossible, not because you're weak, because you're undecided. And indecision is the most expensive lifestyle a person can live. Because indecision doesn't just waste time. It drains strength, it drains clarity, it drains hunger, it drains confidence, it drains the kind of faith that moves mountains. Because faith can't grow in a heart that keeps keeping options open. Let me talk to you like a brother tonight. No sugar, no shame, just truth that can rescue you. Some of you are not losing because you don't love God. You're losing because you keep leaving a door cracked open just in case. Just in case you get lonely, just in case you get bored, just in case you get stressed, just in case you get rejected, just in case the plan gets hard, just in case God doesn't come through the way you want, just in case you need comfort, just in case you need an escape. And that just in case is the reason your prayers feel powerless, because you can't pray for deliverance while packing a suitcase for Egypt. You can't ask God for freedom while keeping a secret emergency exit. You can't ask for a new life while protecting the old one like a backup plan. That's why you don't need more prayer. You need one hard decision. Because prayer without decision becomes a loop, a religious treadmill, a spiritual performance where you feel close to God, but you never actually move. And the enemy loves that. He loves believers who pray but never cut the cord. He loves people who cry but never change. He loves almost obedient Christians because almost is enough to keep you stuck. Now here's the twist. Most people think the hard decision is stop sinning. But the hard decision isn't just stopping. It's surrendering what you've been using to survive. Because the thing you keep going back to isn't always a favorite sin. Sometimes it's your coping mechanism. Sometimes it's your painkiller. Sometimes it's your comfort God. And that's why you keep returning. Not because you're evil, because you're hurting. So the hard decision is not only, I will stop doing this. The hard decision is, I will stop needing this. And that is a deeper kind of surrender. Because anybody can quit something for a week on adrenaline and guilt. But only a transformed person can say, even when I'm lonely, I won't run back. Even when I'm stressed, I won't escape. Even when I'm bored, I won't feed the doorway. Even when I feel empty, I will bring the emptiness to God instead of numbing it. That's the decision you've been avoiding, because that decision requires you to finally face what you've been hiding behind the habit. And that's the part nobody wants. The moment you stop medicating yourself, you start feeling what's real. Grief, regret, shame, anger, fear, loneliness, the memory you keep running from, the insecurity you keep covering, the wound you keep pretending didn't hurt you. So, you stay busy. You stay distracted. You stay entertained. You stay working. You stay in noise, because silence would expose you. But hear me. You don't heal by escaping. You heal by deciding. Now, let's get brutally honest, because this message is not for people who want to feel inspired. This is for people who want to be free. The reason you're still stuck is not lack of knowledge. You already know what's killing you. You already know what drains you. You already know what triggers you. You already know what you shouldn't be touching. You already know what relationship keeps pulling you away. You already know what content makes your spirit heavy. You already know which friend becomes a doorway. You already know the time of night you get weak. You already know the lie you believe right before you compromise. So why are you still stuck? Because you keep hoping God will change what you keep feeding. And God is not a magician. He is a father. A father won't do for you what you refuse to do with him. Because the relationship God wants with you is not automation, it's partnership, it's surrender, it's obedience, and obedience always becomes real at the point of a hard decision. Here's the first hard truth. Many of you keep praying because prayer feels like progress, but prayer is not progress if you refuse obedience. Prayer is supposed to fuel obedience. Prayer is supposed to strengthen decision. Prayer is supposed to ignite action. But some of you have turned prayer into an emotional replacement for discipline. You pray, you feel better, you feel forgiven, and then you go right back. Not because you're fake, because you're trapped in a cycle where feelings are your only strategy. And feelings are the most unreliable leaders on earth. They'll hype you today and betray you tomorrow. They'll make you brave in the morning and weak at night. They'll make you promise big and deliver small. That's why God doesn't build your future on your feelings. He builds it on your decisions. Now, let's expose the enemy's favorite trick in this area. He convinces you that the hard decision is too extreme. Don't delete the app, just be strong. Don't cut them off, just set boundaries. Don't confess, just pray about it. Don't change your routine, just try harder. Don't throw it away, just don't touch it. And you know what happens? You keep trying harder in the same environment. You keep being strong with the same triggers. You keep setting boundaries with the same person who never respects them. You keep praying about it while the doorway stays open, so you fall again. And then you feel ashamed, and then you pray harder, and then you fall again. And then you start thinking, maybe I'm just like this. That is the enemy's goal, not your fall, your identity collapse. Because once you think the problem is who you are, you stop fighting. You stop believing change is possible. You stop expecting God to work. You stop dreaming. You stop planning. You stop stepping out. You settle into survival, and survival becomes your religion. But God didn't save you to survive. He saved you to become new. So the hard decision is not extreme. It's surgery. And surgery always looks extreme to people who've gotten used to living with pain. But if you keep treating cancer like a cold, you don't get better. You get comfortable with dying. Some of you need to hear this. Your future cannot afford your softness. Your calling is expensive, and you keep trying to pay for it with cheap habits. Your purpose is heavy, and you keep trying to carry it with weak boundaries. Your destiny is real, and you keep trying to step into it while holding hands with what God told you to leave. That's not spiritual warfare. That's spiritual indecision. So here's what the hard decision actually looks like. It looks like you stop negotiating with what keeps owning you. It looks like you stop asking, how close can I get without falling? And you start asking, how far can I get from the edge? Because the people who win are not the people who have no temptation. They're the people who stop entertaining it. They stop flirting with it. They stop feeding it. They stop keeping it near like a pet snake. Because snakes don't become harmless just because you've named them. Now, here comes the second twist. The hard decision you need to make might not be about a sin. It might be about a person. Yes. Some of you are stuck because you refuse to release what God already exposed. You keep holding on to a relationship because you're afraid of being alone. You keep keeping access because you're afraid of missing out. You keep going back because you're afraid of starting over. But the relationship is not neutral. It keeps pulling you into compromise. It keeps feeding old you. It keeps making you hide. It keeps making you justify. It keeps making you numb. And you keep saying, God, fix me. But God is saying, leave. And you know what makes this hard? You don't just lose the person. You lose the routine. You lose the attention. You lose the familiar comfort. And that feels like death. But sometimes God has to kill a false comfort so you can finally meet real peace. Now here comes the moment that separates people who stay stuck from people who break through. People who break through stop waiting to feel ready. They decide before they feel. They decide while they're scared. They decide while they're lonely. They decide while they're unsure. They decide while their body still craves the old comfort. Because freedom is built by decisions that don't match your feelings. That's why it's called faith. Faith is not, I feel strong. Faith is, I choose obedience even when I feel weak. Now, let's talk about the one decision in a way that's going to feel like a mirror. There's usually one thing God keeps putting his finger on. It's the one thing you keep saying, not that. The one thing you keep saying, later. The one thing you keep saying, I'll do everything else, but not that. And the reason God keeps bringing it up is because it's the root. You keep trying to cut branches, but God wants to pull the root, because branches grow back, roots don't, and your root might be control. You can't trust God unless you can predict the outcome. So you overthink, plan, delay, panic. You call it wisdom. It's fear wearing a suit, or your root might be secrecy. You want freedom, but you want to keep the image. So you hide the struggle, you fight alone. You lose in private, you show up smiling. And the cycle grows because darkness feeds it. Or your root might be comfort addiction. You don't run to God when you're stressed. You run to food, to scrolling, to fantasy, to lust, to entertainment, to the old habit. God becomes second option. Comfort becomes Lord. Or your root might be approval. You can't say no because you need to be liked. You can't set boundaries because you fear rejection. You keep people close even when they drain you because being alone feels like death. Whatever the root is, the hard decision is the same. You choose God even if it costs you comfort. Now, climax time, because this is where the message stops being theory and becomes a sword. Here's what I want you to understand. You're not going to accidentally become free. Freedom is not an accident. Freedom is built. Freedom is practiced. Freedom is constructed through one hard decision, repeated daily. And the first hard decision is usually a cut that feels unfair, a cut that feels scary, a cut that feels like, but I'll be lonely, a cut that feels like, but I'll lose the connection, a cut that feels like, but what if I fail again? A cut that feels like, but I don't know who I am without this. That's why it's hard, because it's not just a cut from something. It's a cut from an old identity, and the old identity fights back. It screams, it craves, it pleads, it bargains. This is the last time. Just one more. Just today. I'll change tomorrow. God understands. And this is where you become dangerous. You stop arguing with the craving. You stop negotiating with the flesh. You stop trying to convince yourself. You just decide. Not anymore. And you back it up with action, not a speech, a move, because words don't starve habits, moves do. So let me give you a clean, practical blueprint that matches this message. The hard decision in one sentence. I will remove the access that makes disobedience easy. That's it. Remove access, because your willpower is not your problem. Your access is. Your environment is. Your secrecy is. Your routine is. So you make one decision and prove it with one cut. If it's your phone, lock it down, put limits, block sites, delete apps, keep your phone out of the room at night, charge it in another place. If it's a person, cut the contact, not reduce, cut, block if you have to, because you can't heal while the wound is still texting you. If it's isolation, build accountability. Tell one mature person the truth, not pray for me. Tell them the pattern, tell them the time, tell them the trigger, because secrecy is your enemy. If it's your schedule, change the hour. The enemy knows when you're weak because you always do the same thing at the same time. Become unpredictable. Move your body, take a walk, shift the routine, break the ritual, because rituals feed habits. Now, I want to talk to the part of you that's scared, because I can feel it in the way people resist this topic. You're scared that if you make the hard decision, you'll fail again and feel worse. But hear me. Failing after decision is not the same as failing in indecision. Indecision is voluntary chains. Decision is warfare. Decision is, even if I stumble, I'm not going back to making peace with this. Decision changes the direction of your life, and that's why heaven celebrates decision, because decision is proof you're choosing freedom over comfort. Now, here comes the last twist. The hard decision isn't just what you cut, it's what you choose instead. Because if you remove your escape and don't replace it with God, you'll reach for a new escape. A heart doesn't stay empty. So the hard decision is also, I will build a new place for my soul to run. And that place is God. Not fake prayer, not performance prayer, not 5 minutes of guilt prayer, real prayer, honest prayer. Prayer that says, God, I'm craving, I'm not okay, I want to escape, I feel empty, I feel restless, I feel lonely, I feel triggered. And then you sit with him long enough for the wave to pass. Because cravings are waves. If you feed them, they grow. If you outlast them, they pass. Most people feed them too early. They give up right before the peak breaks. So the hard decision is, I will outlast the wave. And you do it again tomorrow, and again, and again. And that's how chains snap. Not in one emotional night, in repeated decisions. And then one day, you wake up and something is different, not because you suddenly became motivated, but because you became disciplined, you became honest, you became consistent, you stopped negotiating, you stopped keeping backup doors, and your prayers stopped feeling like begging and start feeling like authority. Because when you remove the doorway, the enemy loses access, and when the enemy loses access, your mind becomes quiet again, your spirit becomes clear again, your relationship with God becomes real again. Not perfect, real. So let me end this with the only question that matters. What is the one hard decision you already know you need to make, but you keep postponing? Is it deleting the app, cutting the contact, confessing the secret, changing your night routine, leaving the environment, getting accountability, setting the boundary, stopping the just this once deal? Name it, because the moment you name it, you stop pretending. And when you stop pretending, you stop being controlled. You don't need more prayer. You need one hard decision. And if you make it tonight, you'll look back a month from now and realize nothing magical happened. You just stopped feeding what was killing you. And that's when God can finally build what you've been praying for. Not because he was waiting to love you, but because he was waiting for you to choose freedom. Now choose.